board for Tuesday, June 20th to order. I've got all my papers all squared away here now. I will call the roll. Kimberly Bartnick.
Here.
Glenn Brookhouse.
Here.
Jessica Castaneda.
Here.
Art DeYoung. Here. Gail Dugan is here. Beth Johnson.
Here.
Alice Kelsey.
Here.
Robin Clay.
She's out of town.
Karen Stratton.
Here.
And Pastor Craig Van Beek. Okay. We have quorum. Next on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Will you all rise? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next on our agenda is provision for public comment. The subject to a 5-minute limit per speaker. Is there anyone that would like to address the board on agenda items? Brenda, is there anyone online?
Just Jim from the LRE.
Okay. Second call. I'll go ahead and close the public comment section at this time. Approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda? Motion by Alice Kelsey. Do I hear support for that? Support by Karen Stratton. Is there any further discussion on the agenda as provided? Yes.
Chairman, I believe a plan was made for recipient rights training that probably toward the end of the agenda would be appropriate to insert.
Okay, we'll add that after the OnPoint Executive Director's Report. With that addition, yes, Ms. Johnson.
Number 7, the Finance Committee, we have a third motion for tonight.
Okay, and that is the
Deficit elimination. Yep.
deficit elimination plan. Is there any other additions to the agenda? Hearing none. Does the motion maker approve of those
Yes.
additions? Does the person supporting it approve of those conditions?
Yes.
With that said, I will call the roll. Karen Stratton,
Yes.
Alice Kelsey,
Yes.
Beth Johnson,
Yes.
Gail Dugan says yes. Art DeYoung,
Yes.
Jessica Castaneda,
Yes.
Glenn Brookhouse,
Yes.
and Kimberly Bartnick.
Yes.
With that, that stands approved. Next on our agenda is the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
So moved by Kimberly,
Support.
support by Alice. Is there any other, is there anything that would like to be excluded, that any member would like to have excluded for discussion after the consent agenda is approved? Seeing none, there is no exclusions to the consent agenda. I will call the roll. Gail Dugan says yes. Art DeYoung? Yes. Jessica Castaneda?
Yes.
I hope I'm getting that correct. Okay.
I
I don't know if you're supposed to soften it at the end or make it a little louder.
Oh, you're doing it great. I was like.
Okay, Glenn Brookhouse?
Yes.
I aim to please. Kimberly Bartnick,
Yes.
Karen Stratton,
Yes.
and Alice Kelsey,
Yes.
Beth Johnson.
Yes.
That stands approved. Next on the agenda is the program committee. Alice Kelsey, you have the floor.
All right, today we had a presentation of a multitude of our peer support specialists. It was a fascinating discussion. I really didn't realize just how much cross-program collaboration goes on with everyone. And also just, I know this, but this was reiterated that, having people who have lived experience is so valuable to anyone seeking services that, I'm all these terms, I'm trying to get, increased engagement, that was, I thought was a good term to use, that, these kinds of things really keep people in the program, keep people seeking services. And so I was really pleased to see that. They've all have state training and certification, and they're all working in collaboration with with the clinicians. It looked to me like a really big team. That could be all I wanted to say about the peer. Oh, and it's about 7 and a part-time person, so altogether 7 people and a half that are working for us. And almost everybody was talking about, and we're trying to get one more in this area and in that area. So I'm really hopeful that we're able to somehow find the money and the people willing to come, because also I thought to myself, boy, I would never want to do that job. I don't want to do that job. And so, it takes special people who are willing to, go to campgrounds, meet, stay, somebody talked about, just hanging out in the emergency room after hours, kind of thing. So that was wonderful. Leanne told us the exciting news that we're on schedule for all of the applications that we want to apply for, so that we can hopefully receive the CCBHC demonstration model that will start in October. She informed that I learned a new term. It's called crosswalk. And what it means is that it's someone who's looking at the difference between the state and federal requirements and helping people, okay, for this you need this, but you don't need that. And so I was very impressed with that. And Susan made a comment that I thought was really interesting. She said, when we're talking about now serving mild to moderate, she says, there's very few people just mild to moderate, that it really, we've been missing people who truly have needs that need to be, that are totally legitimate to need help. I think when you say mild to moderate, it's like, well, you got a boo-boo, your finger is, needs a Band-Aid or something. And I thought that was a very interesting comment. She also talked about the fact that CCBHC is giving us an opportunity to widen our billable hours. Before there was so many restrictions on, it had to be, encounters had to be just like this, or you couldn't bill for it. And I think that's another huge advantage to this new program. And maybe that's all I want to say.
Thank you very much this evening. Is there any other questions that the rest of the board has for Alice at this time on the program report?
And did I miss anything important that I should have mentioned? Okay.
Can I just
Yes.
make a comment? On page 23, gain from education, we always are interested in evidence-based practices. And I was reading through the report here by Janine, and these 12 bulleted items, this is what we're actually going to be doing or have started to implement and so forth. That's an impressive list of, I don't want to say quality assurance, but just a great way to do business. So that's one.
Thank you.
Is there any other comments for the program committee? Or
I did
questions?
want to say one thing.
Yes, Jessica.
Just to all the staff, the peer support specialists, they had nothing but good things to say about everyone they worked with, their, all their leadership. So I just wanted to mention that. Yeah, they're all doing great.
Thank you. Is there any other questions or comments for the program? Seeing none, thank you very much, Alice, for your report this evening. Next on the agenda is the Finance Committee report. Mrs. Johnson.
What we'll do is the action items, and then Andre can come up and explain that added motion for the deficit elimination. So on page 5, we will start. The Finance Committee is making the motion to recommend that the OnPoint Board approve the May 2023 disbursements totaling $5,532,210.71.
Is that a motion, Mrs. Johnson?
Yes.
Support.
Support by Alice. Is there any further discussion on this particular item? There is 3 vendor payments and a construction payment that is included in that because the last day was on a Sunday and of April, and so it was included into May. So that's why it's a little heavier this time. Hearing none, I'll take a roll call. Karen Stratton,
Yes.
Alice Kelsey,
Yes.
Kimberly Bartnett,
Yes.
Lynn Brookhouse,
Yes.
Jessica Castaneda,
Yes.
Mark DeYoung.
Yes.
I say yes. And Mrs. Johnson,
Yes.
that motion is carried. Please continue.
Okay, the second action item. The Finance Committee is making a motion to recommend that the OnPoint Board approve the following list of provider contracts for fiscal year 2023, and the list is on page 6.
Is there any questions as to the list of providers? To be brevity of time, I'm not going to read them out, but they are part of the record. Mrs. Johnson, is that a motion?
Yes.
Do I hear support for that motion? Support by Karen. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will go ahead and take a motion. Roll call. Beth Johnson,
Yes.
Alice Kelsey,
Yes.
Karen Stratton,
Yes.
Kimberly Bartnett,
Yes.
Lynn Brookhouse,
Yes.
Jessica Castaneda,
Yes.
Mark DeYoung,
Yes.
and myself, I say yes. And next,
Is this a
Continue.
pile of motions?
Is that the
what
pile?
you're-
That's
I think
what-
that's what
thank
you're
you.
looking
That's what I
for.
was looking for, I'm like, all
I
right.
don't think the rest
No,
of them
but
have them.
If they need to vote on it, they need to know what they're voting on. That
Oh.
was added.
this is the only copy I have, Brenda.
Oh,
What you guys do with the stack of 15 you had in there?
Okay, Finance Committee, pop them up.
Have one.
I don't know where they went.
Oh, where they went?
Uh,
Well, I do.
Oh, you got them?
No.
You got 'em?
You know where they went. I know where they went. Because I sent them there. They're in the recycle bin.
Oh, great.
I didn't bring them in here, so I didn't, I wasn't thinking
that everybody had to see it.
correct. I thought they were already in the packets and that they were the packets just for our finance committee.
so pass that down.
I know, well, I need one to read.
Yeah, I can print them out very quickly.
Would you
I
have-
haven't read it over.
There's a couple there, so,
Right.
and, yeah, we've all.
Oh.
So, there we go, we'll make it.
Thank you.
Okay,
Okay, so we have one more action item, and we'll put it on the table with a motion and support, and then have Andre come up and discuss it. So the Finance Committee is making the motion to recommend that the OnPoint Board adopt the attached deficit elimination plan as summarized below. So that's my motion.
Motion by Johnson,
Support. Support.
Kimberly has supported it. We are having discussion on this. As you probably remember, in our minutes that we just approved, we had a similar deficit reduction plan. Andre is going to come up and he is going to explain why we have to do a redo on this. So I guess we got called by a referee for a foul.
Yes, exactly. That's a simple way to put this. So what we had is last month, during the meeting, our financial audit revealed that our liabilities are greater than our assets. Okay, in simple terms. And that put us at a it put us in a deficit position financially, okay, on the books. And so when that happens, you have to file a plan with the state to say how you're going to correct the deficit. So last month, we presented to the board for approval our plan, and then we sent that to the state. The state then provided us feedback on two things. One was truly a technical, that we sent it in without the actual submission being signed off on by our treasurer. That's secretary. Thank you, secretary, not treasurer, secretary. That's number one. But then number two, they wanted to see our full financial position presented as opposed to just the segment that we had interpreted from the rules of the presentation. So with that being said, in principle and practice, nothing's going to change with regards to our plan. It's still the same plan that we intend to act out or carry out. It's going to put us in a positive position still in 2025. We'll have it paid off of $700,000 financial position, so we'll be in a strong position. But the new plan that you see in front of you, or you will see in front of you, shows slightly larger numbers because it includes our entire financial picture as opposed to just a slice of it, which are the rules that the way we interpret it. So it's just appeasing the state as to what they want to see, but our plan and our intentions to carry it out and have it paid and have that position corrected by 2025 have not changed. It's just a presentation to the state.
Is there any questions for Andre at this time? Hearing none. One piece of business that, as chair, I would like to amend the motion to authorize Mr. DeYoung as secretary to sign that because it wasn't in the motion
Up there.
So I'd like to have that seconded, and we'll take a voice vote on that so it's part of the record. Support by Alice Kelsey. Everyone understand the motion that we are authorizing Mr. DeYoung, because he is secretary of this board, to sign the appropriate papers for this deficit elimination plan. Okay, all in favor say yes.
Yes.
All opposed say no. That amendment is part of the motion now. Is there any other questions on the amended motion at this time? Hearing none, I will take a roll call. Kimberly Bartnett,
Yes.
Ben Brookhouse,
Yes.
Jessica Castaneda,
Yes.
Mark DeYoung,
Yes.
Gail Newton says yes, Beth Johnson,
Yes.
Alice Kelsey,
Yes.
and Karen Stratton.
Yes.
That motion passes. And with that, will you have to have a copy of the signed minutes for that to submission to?
Like say, yeah, we better make sure we've got that.
Okay.
So we have that in our back pocket in case they do request that.
Okay,
She said the motion needs to be signed. I don't think Mark needs to sign the minutes as well.
no, what I was saying is a copy of this board's minutes where we have approved
Correct.
that and this plan. So we'll have,
We won't have that for another month until they're approved.
well, we'll have a copy of that going, temporary.
It won't need to be submitted, the signed document, but it'll be nice to have that in our,
in the packet.
that's right. If needed, available.
Okay. Is there any?
Oh.
And again, we just put it on wheels.
Yeah, no, because they wheels don't, put a lock on them. Yeah.
Well, while you're here, we, just a quick financial, status of where we're at for the month.
Sure.
This is kind of momentous because this is his first time doing this, so.
Yeah, flying solo here. Okay, so within your packet, you have your, the financials. I will go through those high level. Certainly if there's any questions along the way, do not hesitate to ask. I'd like to start by saying that first of all, at the end of April, I've got to get used to, we're 2 months behind, so these are April financials. So at the end of April, we are in a very strong financial position. And we're to the positive, with a surplus of roughly 2 million. 2.6 million. So we're doing very, very well as an organization. On the summary sheet right here, the summarized financial or income statement, I'd just like to draw your positions to your eye or attention to are the mental health services, the top section there, combined Medicaid, we have a surplus there of $613,250. And the general fund has a surplus of $221. Okay, so very strong financial position there from a financially for our mental health services. And under substance abuse, we have our combined Medicaid, we have a strong position there of $593,000. So when we comment or talk about a surplus of what would go back to the state, I add together, or our finance team adds together the $613,000 plus the $593,000, bringing us to a total of 1.2. That would be a surplus, combined surplus that would end up going back to the state. Okay, and the general fund of 221 would also be included in that, bringing us to 1.4 million in surplus that we have at the end of April. Okay, the 3 takeaways I want you to have with regards to this page are these. We anticipate that due to the Medicaid re-enrollment activities for the individuals that we're serving, that there's going to be a shift from individuals that are re-enrolling and then not getting re-enrolled, okay, and then falling to our general fund because they do not have insurance or they're not willing to seek it, what have you. So we'll end up handling and addressing those individual needs to the general fund. Number 2 takeaway is this, that with that shift, we're not expecting any impact on us regarding pushing us into a deficit position towards the end of the year. So our strong financial position, which I just covered with you, we believe we're fully prepared financially to absorb that shift in the enrollments or lack thereof. The third takeaway I'd like for you to have is this, that's actually adding confidence to our position. And that's this, the state has already intimated that they are looking into providing a retro increase to the CMHs for that shift or loss in revenue for the individuals that aren't going on that are re-enrolling. And we will not know what that is specifically, those numbers, until probably August, September timeframe, but they've already intimated very strongly that they're aware of this shift and potential impact to the CMHs for the remainder of the year, and that they're exploring what it would look like and how to deliver a retro increase for us. So the combination of those puts us in a pretty good position with some confidence. Any questions?
Yes. Mrs. Kelsey?
Well, I would just be curious to kind of have some idea of just what percentage are we losing in revenue, like per month? And what is the lag? So if someone is, they had to re-enroll in April, and then let's say they don't get it, they're not eligible for May, is it that quickly? And then how soon does that revenue, May's revenue, then come to us? You know?
So good question. And yes, we're paying attention to that. The enrollments didn't start until June.
June, yeah.
Correct. So this is going to be a kind of a lagging effect. We will not start to see effects of this even preliminarily until probably July, August. But it'll really be reflected next year on this time. So yes, so the team is prepared to track that and pay keen attention to it, but we're not going to start seeing the effects of that, the impact.
So do you know, like, when do we get May's, to use the same example, when does May's money, based on how many people who receive Medicaid in May in Allegheny County, how soon do we get that money? Is it the next month? Is it 3 months from?
Should be the next month.
Should be the next month.
Right.
Is there any other questions?
I'm happy to know that you're confident, but I want some like wood somewhere, just like, yes.
Yeah.
Because whenever you say, oh, I'm sure we're gonna be fine.
Well, and I say sure, I said, there's some confidence. It's the state we're still dealing with. Yeah, so.
It makes me nervous.
Yes, I'm right there with you. Okay,
Thank you.
sure. Going on to the balance sheet, I'll just speak to a couple points there on the balance sheet. You see that our assets, from asset position, we had an increase in our assets from 6.2 in September, 6.2 million in September, 7.9 in April. The main driver there that I just want to draw to everyone's attention is the fact that, and this is a good thing, that we're receiving our payments from the LRE much more quickly. So that timing is a great thing. So we like to see cash coming in and us receiving payments. The other thing I want to the other item I'd like to draw your attention to is the depreciation of the 4.9 million under our assets and the 8.7. I'd like you to keep in mind that these are April financials. So we had not moved into this building yet. So that's all of the project costs that are sitting there. So that's capital, that's what we put on from a financial or accounting standpoint, we put in CIP, construction in progress dollars. So those numbers are going to come down now that we've moved into the building now in May. But right now, this is all the accrual of those dollars sitting there. From a liability standpoint, with our total current liabilities of 7.4 to 8.65, what I'd like to really draw your attention to is the 2.6 million due to other governmental units and the 3.4. The driver for the shift there is a reflection of all the accruals that we made for cost settlements that we have to pay out for 2022 as well as 2023 to a lot of our contracted providers. So that number is also going to end up going down because we're going to end up paying those cost settlements out to the providers here over the next several months. Okay, so but right now it's building as a payable. Okay. But when you look at the bottom is what I obviously looking at it from the detail, but what I'd like to really draw your attention to is our total net position of the 2.64 million. So from a balance sheet standpoint, we're in a strong position still even at the end of April, and I'm not anticipating a tremendous shift going into May's numbers, but they're going to shift in some of the areas that I commented on because we moved into the building now. So that's going to be a big thing. But we're hopeful that the LRE is going to continue with its current timing of payments to us to keep that cash coming in. Balance sheet questions at all? Okay, we'll keep moving. I'd like to go now to the expanded income statement, a little more detail.
Page 11.
They're upside down on ours.
Yeah, they're yeah. They printed a little funny.
Yeah.
Did you get it?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So I'd like to draw everyone's attention to the top left there, and you'll see a 58.33. It was a new revelation for me that we actually had that number up there, and I shared that with the finance committee, so I'd like to make sure I draw everyone's attention to that. What that number does reflect is where we're supposed to be on pace for our spend, either in revenue that we've received or our expenditures. So from a revenue standpoint, we should have received at least 58% of our revenue that we budgeted. And on the expense side, we should have expensed 58% according to budget, okay? Under or over those numbers, that tells us on a SNP test whether we're doing well or not. So quickly going through this, if you look at our revenue, our total operating revenue, we're at 58.96. So we've received 58.96 of our revenue to date that we budgeted. What's causing us to be over, it's a good thing, so we want to see this type of position, but I'd like to just draw your attention 2 lines up to that PBIP. That's a performance-based incentive plan where we receive incentive dollars for hitting quality metrics. We did not budget for that, but you see in year to date, and we were just paid back in April, $245,757. That's helping push us over, which is a good thing. On the operating expense side, looking at our total expenses, we're at 55.79, so we're under where we're supposed to be for the year. And the main reason there is if you're looking at our salaries and wages, we're significantly under. That is because we've got open positions that we budgeted, but we backfilled those positions. So looking at our contracted services, you see that's 88%, pretty high percentage number. When you net the two for dollars, dollar for dollar, just looking at the dollars, what I'd like for the board to understand is we are $1.1 million underspent in our salaries and wages to budget when you compare our actual to budget. When you look at our contracted services, we are $490,000 overspent than what we budgeted. When you net the two of those together, we are $610,000 to the positive. So they offset each other because of open positions that we had. For example, my position was not filled with myself or a salary expense actually hitting it until 6 months, till February. Okay, so after 6 months of the year. So that expense was budgeted, but not hitting payroll. And the only expense that the organization was experiencing was Aaron's contracted expense. Okay, so that's happened across several areas of the agency, but still in net we are underspent, which is helping our financial position. If you look there at the bottom, in the ending net position of $2.6 million. Any questions regarding a little more detail around our income?
I don't see any questions at this time.
Just want to make sure. And then the remaining sheets are a lot of information. They're key indicators and trends that we look at when it comes to our revenue to make sure that we're tracking on a year-over-year basis. So the first page there contains our Medicaid, our Healthy Michigan, and our SUD revenue, where we're able to track and compare if we're in line with prior years. And 2023 is, as you can tell by the gray bars, is ahead of prior years in many of the months on a month-to-month trend. So we're doing well there, which you were aware of by the income statement I just covered with you. The second page includes our revenue and expenses combined. Just looking at those to make sure we're understanding on a visual basis where our revenue is coming in by payer for Medicaid and our expenses that are associated with that. Once again, there's nothing here that makes me feel uncomfortable from my seat. A lot of this is due to timing when you look at April's, because of the way money gets expensed and money coming in, that it ends up rolling over into the next month. So we'll see April numbers down in the bar graph, but when this is reprinted for next month, the bar graph will be up because we will now reflect all the payments and revenues that came in actually surfaced in May that are April dollars that we accounted for them. Okay, but this is still something that we actively track. The last 3 pages here are some indicators that we look at on a programming level to make sure we're understanding how many individuals are serving and applying cost to those. We have an understanding of the of the volume of individuals that we're serving on a month-to-month basis. but also the minutes associated with that and the cost associated with that, with those as well. So we're analyzing that on a monthly basis, comparatively, but also within the month. So are there any questions? I don't want to gloss over anything, but I also want to be respectful of time and other things on the agenda. But if there are questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Mrs. Johnson?
Okay, that's it for us. Thank you, Andre. So, here we go.
Thank you very much for your report, both of you tonight. Is there any other questions for Beth before we go on to the next chair? We don't want to be losing
They
our
get moved.
CFO.
Yeah, right.
With that, we'll go on to the recipient rights advisory. Is there anything to report?
Nothing to report.
Okay. Next on the agenda is the chairperson's executive committee report for this month. We are going down through the things that the executive board did go and relay and talk about. We are seeing a recruitment ad in the Allegan News to get people interested in being on this board and participating with us. We also looked at a replacement for Mr. DeYoung on the LRE board. If we're looking for getting a quality candidate to be able to step up for that. We went over the board meeting packet, reviewed that, and then we had talked about the CCBHC extension grant and some of the housing needs with that. We were given a staffing update and the Board of Commissioners presentation that's going to happen in July to the Board of Commissioners at Allegan County. We looked at some of the other things that are coming up, such as revamping our mission statement and values and vision. And we're going to look at that here momentarily. I also had a couple appointments that I would like to take care of at this time. Number one is Jessica Castaneda's appointments. I would like to appoint Jessica to the, well, I'll just read the motion. As chairperson of the OnPoint board, I request affirmation of the board for my appointment of Jessica Castaneda to the program committee and the recipient rights advisory committee. With that, do I have a support for that motion?
Support.
Support by Glenn Brookhouse. Is there any questions or discussion on that? Hearing none, I will call roll. Glenn Brookhouse,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
Mark DeYoung,
Yes.
Gail Dugan says yes. Beth Johnson,
Yes.
Alice Kelsey,
Yes.
Karen Stratton,
Yes.
and Kimberly Partnick.
Yes.
Thank you very much for that support of those appointments to those two committees. I know she'll do a wonderful job. The other one is I would like to, as chairperson of the OnPoint board, I request affirmation of the board for my appointment of Kimberly Partnick to the Recipient Rights Advisory Committee. Do I hear support for that?
Support.
Raise your hand, whoever wants it.
I'll take it.
Glenn Brookhouse gets it. With that, she will be a consumer presence on the recipient rights board, and I believe a very nice asset to that board from that perspective. Thank you very much for agreeing to do that. I will call roll. Kimberly?
Yes.
Glenn Brookhouse?
Yes.
Mark DeYoung?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
Gail Dugan says yes. Beth Johnson?
Yes.
Alice Kelsey?
Yes.
And Karen Stratton?
Yes.
Thank you very much for your confirmation of Kimberly to that committee. With that, would you like to, I believe that sums up the executive committee report, except for we discussed board composition and how we're being appointed on that board. We went over a list of that. We also looked at our calendar to make sure that we're on pace with different things that we need to accomplish as a board, and so far we're on pace to take care of those different duties as we go forward through the year and the calendar year. With that, is there any questions for me, for executive or for the chairperson? Yes, Alice.
Were we gonna offer the opportunity for people to look at that list to see if there was any,
Which list?
where it kind of showed the members and the different categories and
Oh, yes, we're done.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I would circulate the document that you looked at, and I made some markings on it, but if you could just check or indicate the changes you might recommend on the line that your name falls in, we'd appreciate that.
You want to go ahead and just pass it around, or go ahead and have it taken care of?
Yeah, thank you.
It's fairly self-explanatory. It's marked on there which that you represent right now for the entire community, but there's something extra that you would like to have notated on that, such as being a parent of a special needs person, or a special relationship you have with one of the columns. Please go ahead and make that X on the master copy there. With that, we will take care of the mission statement and value statement here momentarily. Is there any other questions for me? Thank you very much. You want to go ahead and do the report from the LRE at this time?
We have Jim McCormick on the line
Yes.
with the LRE tonight.
Jim, glad to have you here. Brenda's going to bring you up on the full screen here so we can all see you, and thank you very much for your presence this evening.
All right, let me know when you're ready.
There you are.
All right.
Can you see us okay?
Yes, yep, thank you.
All right.
I'm here tonight. Stephanie Vanderkoy is on vacation, so I agreed to fill in so she could have some much deserved time off. I had very little of an update. The only thing I was asked to bring to you all is that July 24th through the 28th, the LRE is conducting our annual desk audit with OnPoint, and so we're starting to pull together those plans and working with the audit team to pull together those proofs, and we will be working very closely together that week in July to review all the desk audit standards. Other than that, I asked around if there were any updates or anything that LRE wanted me to bring to you, and that was the only thing that I got back before this meeting. Unless anyone has any questions, I can attempt to address.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. McCormick? I'm seeing no hands raised. Thank you very much, Jim. Have a
Great.
good evening.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Whitting, you're up next. Thank you.
Thank you. I think the report that I provided to you in writing before tonight, I think I'd like to concentrate just on the one item that I referenced related to the mission, vision, values. I'm going to pass around the copies if you do me the favor of actually taking one and passing it to your right. You will do very well. While that's going around, let me describe for you what it is that this is about. We spent quite a bit of time over the past few years looking at our mission, vision, values. The origins of those have been through a number of hands, a number of staff were involved in formulating recommendations around that and so forth. And we come to a point where we want to be able to post these on our walls and make it publicly available for our staff to see, for our community to see. And so it's really about trying to, at this point, nail down the last verbiage that we really want to accomplish so what we put on the wall is the best we could possibly do. What we had before, the official version prior to now, has been just a little bit, I'll call it, well, not clunky exactly, but it didn't read very smoothly in many cases. So while we weren't looking to change core values, we certainly wanted to smooth out the mission and vision statements themselves. So what was proposed to you through this motion that I reflected on a little bit more detail in my report was a recasting of those terms and then a very slight change related to the item of cultural competence under the core values list. We had the opportunity to meet with our internal leadership team last week before to talk a little bit about each of those, all of these things, the mission, the vision, and the core values. And one of the interesting pieces of the conversation had to do with the core values, particularly in the area of cultural competence. We have a variety of staff and many different perspectives, and there were some suggestions that maybe the term cultural competence isn't really what we want to put there, and in favor of a term known as cultural humility. We've spent some time talking about that in our leadership team, and really believe that it would probably be best to recommend to you that even though this motion was intended for you to see tonight and to act on, that you consider the idea of tabling it, well, moving it to put it on the floor, but tabling it so that we can have the opportunity to give you some additional material to take a look at over the next month and to come back next month with a bit of an input for us as staff on how you would like to see that issue resolved. What I've prepared for you is two documents. You certainly can do your own research as well. Two documents for you that are intended to sort of help you compare and contrast the debate, the discussion around cultural competence and cultural humility. So I'd like to share those with you and have you again take one, pass one, and fill out what I would just invite the opportunity, if you have thoughts or comments you'd like to share at this time, that we could receive those as well. But otherwise, that's all I had intended for my report tonight.
Mrs. Johnson, you have the floor.
So just to clarify, the core values are staying the same, and it's the last one, the cultural competence, and so it's either the competence or the humility. Is that what we're looking at?
Well, when you open the door, as we're opening it to change, you are in charge of where it goes from here. You have a recommendation before you, and that's right. But where it goes in terms of the board's activity, only you know.
Okay.
But you're right about what's being recommended.
Okay.
Because I've never heard that term before, so I'm happy to read up on it a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, with that said, I was going to try to foster some sharing among the board members tonight as to, at first blush, what they felt the mission statement, the refreshing of that from the current, which is strengthening our community by improving and advocating for the lives of individuals and families, to the what is proposed, improving the lives of people in Allegan County through exceptional behavioral health and homelessness services. That's what we're looking at, changing the mission statement to. Does the board, there's aspects of this, whether the board feels that this is all encompassing, that there's a mission statement to go forward with, or to garner some thoughts of like a roundtable here at the board level as to what you feel. Is this a statement that we should adopt as a mission statement, or do you think it should be appropriately changed in some way, fashion? I said my two piece to go and foster this conversation. Is there anyone that would like to? Yes, Alice.
Well, this literally just occurred to me is, when we look at exceptional behavioral health services, I was wondering what about our idea about integrative services? Whether do we somehow put that in there or not? So that's just throwing it out there. I don't know, but it just occurred to me that.
Is there anyone else that has any ideas? Yes, Beth.
I kind of go along with you, Alice, that, we've put so much energy, effort into the CCDHC that we are missing the word integrated. I don't know how you'd fit it in.
Okay. Is there any other?
I have more of a question. On the old vision statement, there's a verb that we're building something, and on the new vision, it's just a place. So is that awkward to have no verb in the vision, or is that just our vision to have an inclusive community?
Well, I thought we were working with the mission, but
I'm sorry.
You skipped to the vision, so I wanted to make sure that everyone's on the same thing here. We're talking about page 35 in your pamphlet. Those are what Beth was alluding to, but she's on the vision part of this.
Okay.
Yes, Alice?
Yeah, well, sorry, but go to we've got integrated in the vision, and we've got integrative behavioral health services.
Okay.
So why isn't it in the mission? Good eye.
Well, after the fact.
Okay. Anyone else would like to share, please? Well, let's go and move on to the vision here, since we started on that. Karen, did you? No, Kimberly? Glenn?
Trying to read it. I don't have my glasses.
Do you need a pair of readers, or you need your glasses? Prescription
I
glasses?
have readers, but not with me, but I forgot both today.
Well, what I'd
So,
suggest
could
is
you
after.
friend to her, maybe?
Well, I'll read the vision statement here. The current one that we have is building a community which provides integrated behavioral health care effectively, efficiently, and sustainability for all who require it. And the new proposed is an inclusive community with integrated behavioral health services and safe, affordable housing for all.
I think that the current covers it better.
Okay.
mean, especially when it goes into the safe, affordable housing for all. I mean, we're not quite there yet.
Okay.
I know they're working real hard, but I mean, even their peer support was talking about that,
Right.
how hard that was.
I would like to say the vision for me, the new proposed one, I see that as that's what they're working towards. And that's
Yes.
what is gonna happen, and working towards that, we're already building that, so it's going back to the word building. It's a given, because that's, at least for me, that's what we're doing. And making that inclusive community and having that vision with the integrated behavioral health services, and eventually being able to provide all those safe and affordable housing. I really like that vision, because you know what that strives, what you're gonna do. All the work that you're gonna do is to make these things happen. It's gonna be to provide those integrative services. So if you have that vision in mind, every single step that you take while you're working, from the board to the peer support, to leadership, to the staff, if they're all on that same vision, everything they do, it's gonna wrap around. Like, I really like the way that was written. And Mark, you said that came from staff.
Staff particularly were involved in the core values, the production of the core values. Mr. Chairman, I maybe should say that it's been helpful for me to be reminded. I mean, there's 1,000 different ways that people describe what missions and visions should be, but I think you're kind of at the point where you say, you know, mission should describe what you do, and the vision should describe what you hope to result from what you do if you're successful. Right. And so the vision is a future state. It is what we hope will result, and the activities we undertake to get there are in the mission.
And how you do it would be the values, that's the way I see it.
And with what spirit.
Yes. Yes, Mrs. Johnson.
With the vision, it just kind of says an inclusive community. And I don't know, I know Allegan County's in the mission, so you don't want Allegan County maybe everywhere, but to me, it seems like if it said, for Allegan County to become an inclusive community with the rest of it, it just kind of floats out there a little bit. It's like not anchored to anything for me. I don't know.
But it's the vision of the agency, so that should be.
I'm
assumed.
thinking of if I'm somebody that walks in off the street and sees that on the wall and it says an inclusive community with integrated behavior, are they talking about this building? Just this building? Are they talking, you know, is that our vision just to have it within this building? Because if you put this out on a wall and some brand new person comes in the door, they're gonna say, oh, that's what this is.
Gotcha.
So I'm thinking, how do you get a brand new person? None of us, we all know what's going on here, but you gotta think like a brand new person from Tallahassee walks in the door. And then you gotta then it doesn't make as much sense. So, just saying.
Is there any other further comment? Well, my view of this is the horizon thinking that the board needs to provide. And I like the idea of tabling this and giving the board 30 days to really look at it, think about this. Do we need to massage this a little bit, or come back with Mark's right on the spot with this proposal, and let's go forward with it. And we'll have it on the agenda for amendment or approval next month. And come with your ideas. Don't be afraid if you feel that this is something that you really feel strongly about, that you add a few words or rewrite or whatever. So we have a fruitful discussion and approve something next month. So entertain a motion to table.
Motion to table.
Motion by Jessica to table.
I don't think it was moved yet to move it. Are you
Right.
tabling a motion that hasn't been entered yet or not?
There's no motion.
There's no motion at this time. So I think we can dispense with, this is your homework.
There you go.
it will be on the agenda next month, and we'll have it there.
That concludes my report unless you have other questions.
Is there any other questions for Mr. Whitty at this time? Hearing none, thank you very much. And I appreciate everyone participating in this exercise. This is part of why we serve as a board, to bring that type of horizon thinking to the rest of the organization. With that brings us to rec training. Unless you want to do public comment first, so. No,
Okay.
you're next.
All right. I've been reminded that it's summer and everyone wants to go home, so let's try and keep this quick. So this is the annual update for experience training. It meets all the criteria for the initial training as well, outlined in our contract with the state. So special for newly appointed staff members all that criteria. So, Brenda, are you good to follow along with me?
I'm certainly going to try.
I'll try to go through it. So, I'm going to start on the next slide. There's a flyer that's provided by the State Office of Recipient Rights. So there's a state office and then local offices. Michigan Mental Health Code is where we find all of our standards. Most of those standards are then clarified in the administrative rules. So this flyer goes over the role of the rights department at the local level. So we are involved in prevention of recipient rights violations, which involves consulting on rights matters, assisting in referring complaints to other departments as appropriate, policy development and review, notifying the director of problem areas for practice, any patterns that we might find, and then assisting the agency in preparing for accreditation reviews. Education, there's 2 parts of this. So above the dotted line, there's the training that we receive as the office. So we are trained, initially we go through a basic skills training that the state puts on, and then there's a certain number of continuing education specific to recipient rights that we receive every year. And then below that dotted line, we are also responsible for training or ensuring that training has occurred from another county for all internal agency staff and then all contract provider staff. And that training has to have occurred within the first 30 days of hire. So then there's also this training, so training the RAC and the board, and then participating in any sort of information sharing that recipients are interested in. Monitoring takes place with reviewing incident reports, death reports. I'm going to skip a couple. Participating in behavior treatment plan review committee. So all restrictions, you'll hear us talk about restrictions a lot. Those come up in alleged violations pretty frequently. So the behavior treatment plan is our avenue for approving those restrictions. And so I sit on that committee. Our site reviews with all of our contracted providers, our residential settings occur at least once per year or more frequently if deemed necessary. And then that data report is what you'll see next month, our semi-annual report, and then in January, our annual report. And then complaint resolution is what we're most known for. So you may not know that any of the other things are happening behind the scenes, but complaint resolution is the bulk of the data that we're reporting out each time RAC meets. And then those are kind of the more recognizable things. So we receive reports of alleged rights violations. We investigate, reach a conclusion, and then if that's substantiated, we recommend adequate remedial action or disciplinary action if the category matches. So if it's abuse, neglect, or retaliation. And then we assist in the appeals process when needed. Any questions on that one? That was a dense slide. Okay. So, roles and responsibilities. So that was the role of my office, and this is the roles and responsibilities of everyone else. So agency director. So the mental health code states that the CMH establishes the rights office, and then that rights office is subordinate only to the executive director. The board of directors is responsible for appointing a rights advisory committee. The rights advisory committee I have defined on the next slide. So I'll come back to that, but then the Rights Advisory Committee can also serve as the Appeals Committee, and then all staff are involved in protecting rights, reporting alleged violations. Okay. I find myself going too quickly. Am I going too quickly?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
All right, I'll keep going. So this is a dense slide. You can have it. You can read it as you want. I'm going to highlight that RAC, there is a standard saying that both primary consumers and family members of primary consumers have a presence on RAC. The standard is that we meet at least twice a year. We recently moved to meeting quarterly instead of every other month, so we're still above that standard. I'm going to read D, because that's kind of the essence of RAC. So protect the Office of Recipient Rights from pressures that could interfere with the impartial, even-handed, and thorough performance of its functions. And then F, serve in an advisory capacity to the Executive Director and the Director of the Office of Recipient Rights. And then just a reminder that RAC can serve as the Appeal Committee, that's an H, and then I, we are compliant with Open Meetings Act. So next slide, these are all the categories of rights. And then when we do our status reports each time RAC meets, you'll see some of these categories, you might see them narrow down into even more specific categories. The state in our contract highlights which of these categories are required for the board to be trained on. So that's what you'll see in the following slides. So dignity and respect is one of those. The mental health code says a recipient has the right to be treated with dignity and respect. And then the state provides us that definition and requires us to put it in our policy. So our policy is where we find the definition. And you can read this if you would like. Confidentiality. There are two fairly dense slides on this. I'm going to summarize it to be all information. So this first bullet, all information, which is both that in the record and anything acquired in the course of providing mental health treatment. So it's more than just a diagnosis, it's more than just name. Any information acquired in the course of providing mental health services is to be kept confidential unless there's an authorized purpose for disclosure. So authorization applies to both written consent or something that's authorized elsewhere in the law. So reporting to the police in a case of imminent harm or communicating with CPS, APS, things like that. And then the link back to the board, any information you learn in the course of being a board member about a recipient is also being kept confidential. That's the quick summary of both of those slides. So rights of family members. Family members have the right to be treated with dignity and respect and have the right to be given an opportunity to provide information to the treating professionals. That is sometimes one way only because of confidentiality. So they can provide to the treating professionals. Treating professional can only provide information back if there's authorization. And family members also have an opportunity to request and receive educational information about the nature of our services in general. Okay, abuse and neglect. So the mental health code simply says a recipient of mental health services shall not be subjected to abuse or neglect. The administrative rules are where we find our definitions. So the main definition would be abuse is an action, neglect is either a lack of action or an action that is contrary to a standard of care. So the definitions are provided to you, but the things that I want to pull out of that would be agents of the providers. I think it's 2 slides ahead right now. So abuse and neglect applies to staff primarily, but also agents of the provider, volunteers, interns, anyone acting on behalf of the agency. And then the following slide. Non-serious physical harm and serious physical harm are 2 of the key things that we look for here. Emotional harm is also defined, but the most common ones that we see are an allegation of either non-serious physical harm, which is anything up to permanent disfigurement or up to death, and then serious physical harm includes that physical impairment, permanent impairment, and then death is obviously considered serious physical harm. Physical management is on this slide, and then it's also, we'll go one more at that if you could. Oh, give me another one.
Did I go too far?
I'm looking for unreasonable force. So when
Oh,
I'm
wait.
let's talk about how they link together. Yeah, so physical management and unreasonable force kind of go together. So physical management is a prescribed set of techniques, a certification in a physical management system. Anything that's used outside of that, or when that's used inappropriately, would be categorized as unreasonable force. I'm highlighting these because we get a ton of allegations about this. We also do a lot of going back to that first slide. You don't have to go all the way back to it, but calling your memory back to the first slide. So a lot of that monitoring that we do through incident reporting is looking at emergency use of physical management forms that are attached to an incident report whenever physical management is used, which allows us to assess for if it was used appropriately or if we need to open an investigation. We spend a lot of time tracking down those forms in the first place. So that's a lot of the communication we've been doing with our provider network. We do need those forms. So that's the genesis part of this. That is the law. When do I report? So this would apply to as board members too. If you hear or you suspect, so apparent or suspected is the language we use. If you know for sure it happened, or you just have a gut feeling, you have enough evidence that you think it did, but you can't prove it, that's enough to report. Then it's up to my office to open that complaint and investigate. The standard that we use for our investigative process is a preponderance of evidence. So we look at the quality of the evidence rather than the quantity, and we're trying to establish that it's more likely than not that the violation occurred. So I do want to call your attention to the second main bullet point. So technically the fourth down up there. So staff who participate in the recipient rights protection process are protected from retaliation for their participation in that process. We've been doing a lot of clarifying of that last statement, that the retaliation that we have jurisdiction over is retaliation for participation in the rights process. It's not for a decision that a staff doesn't like that their manager made that has nothing to do with the rights protection system. We have had a few things come in lately and historically, but more so lately, where staff want to complain about how their recipient's treating them or how another staff is treating them that is separate from the rights protection. And so we either refer back to the clinical process or to HR wherever is appropriate. Investigative process. So we talked about the preponderance. We receive and process all complaints. We do not have an ability to say, no, that doesn't count. If we receive a formal complaint, we respond. That response might be, there's no complaint, or there's no right here, or we don't have jurisdiction. But if we receive a formal complaint, we issue a formal response. We have unimpeded access to all information necessary to reach a conclusion in the investigation, which is spelled out, especially given all of the confidential measures that we just talked about. And then our process is to send that acknowledgement letter, a status report every 30 days, a report of investigative findings to the respondent, so whoever has the authority to issue the plan of correction. And then once we receive a plan of correction, we send a summary report. I'm going to move on to appeals unless there are any questions about
Any questions for Kelsey at this time?
All right. This is our appeals notice. It goes out with every summary report. So the recipient's guardian, and whoever filed the report, so the complainant, has appeal rights and can appeal based on those 3 bullets. So they can appeal saying they don't believe that the findings are consistent with the facts. They don't believe that the action taken was sufficient, or they don't believe that the investigation was initiated or completed in a timely basis. So the flow chart, the following slide. Again, this is provided by the state. So this walks through both the process, but also possible responses. You'll notice timeliness is not on here. So the only real response we can give if an appeal about timeliness is upheld is our plan to prevent reoccurrence. There's not really an ability to go back and make it happen any faster, but we can say, here's what we're going to do to make sure that things happen as quickly as possible in the future. Some of the possible responses would be to overturn I don't know if I want to say overturn the findings, because the appeals committee isn't really making their own conclusion, but they could send it back for investigation or send it back for more review of the evidence. Or refer the investigation to the state. And then if the appellant is not satisfied, at the end, there is second level appeals, which go to the state at this point. So we spent a lot of time talking in state trainings about how appeals aren't necessarily bad things. They happen so infrequently that we all kind of brace ourselves when they do happen. It's an opportunity to provide feedback about how we can improve things, or for someone to tell us we might have missed something and go correct whatever was missed. This slide is our contact poster, so it's available in this building. It's in all of our provider sites. So we have the complaint line, the incident report line, and then phone numbers. And that's it. I think that might be the fastest training I've ever done. Anything that you are dying to know about. All right.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Any of those categories that we didn't cover, if you want to just connect with me and learn more about them, that's those standards.
And these are also available online at CMHA as part of your board training. You can access that anytime on your computer. So, thank you very much, Kelsey, this evening. With that, we have provision, our second provision for public comment. Is there anyone that would like to address the board here on any topic? Yes, please.
Okay. So my name is Kathy Potter. I'm the customer service rep for OnPoint. And part of my responsibility is to facilitate a consumer advisory group. We have 3 members, and they really were proud and honored to participate in the branding process. So they attended a meeting, Mark joined, and we talked about the change of the name. So I just saw the opportunity with the vision and the mission statement, and I think I just want to make a request or just a statement that have we thought about sharing the new vision and mission statement with our consumer advisory group? I think they really provide a lot of good feedback, and they would be honored to provide any feedback they could to help us.
Thank you very much.
I just had to be their voice today.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Brenda, is there anyone online?
Not a soul.
Second call for public comment. Hearing none, I'll close that second provision. Board member comments. Glenn, would you like to start off tonight?
All set, thank you.
Mark?
Well, for other board members that may not know why I'm no longer on the LRE board, I submitted my resignation. I've been on there, I can't remember how many years, and we've gotten to a certain point where I think they can move forward from, and hopefully with collaboration between the CMHs and some watchfulness by the LRE board, that they'll stay on track and complete that strategic planning that they've embarked on and move in the right direction. But I've given about all I can for my family's sake. I had to step down and spend some time with my family and regroup and try to get to know some of my grandkids a little bit. So I appreciate the support I've had from OnPoint board and from others on the LRE board over the years, and I just wish them the best, and I'll still be rooting for them.
Mrs. Johnson?
Nothing.
Mrs. Kelsey?
All set.
Boy, Kelsey. Okay, well, then I will try to keep my comments short. First off, as chair of this board, as you talked me into it way back when, it truly has been an adventure so far. And getting us into the new building and everything. It's been an honor to sit in the chairman's seat and be able to guide this. And from that perspective, I know the trials and tribulations that you have dealt with the state and the LRE board. And I personally would like to extend the thanks that you have honored us by your conduct, your foresight, and your horizon thinking on that board to create a situation where the state doesn't come back after us again, and to set before them the perfect opportunity to go forward as an LRE, Lakeshore Regional Entity. I salute your work on that, and thank you on behalf of this board and behalf of Allegan County, because you have done us proud.
You're here.
So,
Couldn't have done it without the support of everyone here. So thank you.
I know that we were all praying for you. So, secondly, if anyone would like to step up and fill his shoes, please contact Mr. Whitty. He'll explain how easy it is to do. But going forward, I appreciate the community that we have created here, that we continue to evolve and go forward, and appreciate the time and effort that everyone puts into serving Allegan County and the community, the ones that really need our hands-on service. Thank you for your time and effort going forward. And with that, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I
Motion
almost
by,
typed it in before she said it.
do I hear a support?
Support.
Support by Kimberly? Yes. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
All opposed can say. We stand adjourned.